motivation is downstream from discipline, number one. So discipline is real important. And I want to say, as a person who's sober and maintained a massive amount of weight loss for 6 years now, I've maintained this weight loss. That's a long, long time. There are so many days that I'm not motivated, but I have discipline in what I'm doing. And I get through the moment of the voice in my head saying, take a day off, order Domino's, lay in bed. Paige Dorian Productions, welcome back to the American Glutton Podcast.
Thank you for having me here. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm pretty good. I've got a topic that a lot of people have been asking about, and I just thought, let me ask Ethan this question.
Let's do it. What is the question?
Okay, how do you stay motivated and avoid burnout in your fitness journey? Because, you're at this place where you're really in the groove, but a lot of people can get there and then feel like bored, distraught. It's, you know what I mean? Like, how do you avoid that burnout feeling?
Yeah. Well, okay. When I think of burnout, I think of overdoing it, but I suppose there could be the burnout from just dull repetition too. But so there was a time where I was trying to actively lose weight through cardio, and that becomes really tricky because you have to exercise more than you're consuming. You have to create the caloric deficit through exercise. And I find with stuff like cardio, your body adapts quickly and starts to understand. Like, it could always be a positive health metric, like getting in cardio can be beneficial to your health, but your body does kind of understand what you're doing at a certain point. So you kind of always have to increase. And I got to a point where I was riding a bicycle for like 8 hours a day, 6 days a week to lose weight, and still having to withhold food because after a while you're plateauing and you're like, what am I doing? Oh, I need to reduce intake again because right now my body's gamed this exercise and I've gotten to a place where it's no longer going to produce weight loss. And so with that just got to be the point of utter fatigue that I just couldn't maintain that. It took so much time. I wasn't working and making any money. It was like a weird thing of like Brandy going like, you can't retire. I think I was probably in my mid 30s. Probably I was in my mid 30s, and like there was just no way I could like go like, well, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. And my body also was telling me, my body was starting to
little microphone difficulty.
Yeah. So there's that. So I think about burnout in that sense and go like, what do I want from exercise? There can be burnout. There can be diet fatigue too. Like if we're talking about how you eat, I think with most diets, when I thought of them as short-term things, it's like, okay, this sucks. I can do this for 3 months, right? Or I can lose X number of pounds while doing this. And then on the flip side, like stay motivated. It's that strange thing that realizing that this is a lifelong thing. Like my issue is not a short-term thing. We talked about the last time we did one of these, like acute versus chronic. It really had to make me focus because there were many times that I entered into a diet and was like, well, I'll do this forever. If this gets me to where I want to be going, I'll do this forever. Like keto. That was my point of view with keto at a certain point, was like, okay, I never get to eat carbohydrates again, other than like a handful of broccoli every now and again, or, even if it was every day, like I'm not going to exceed 35 or 50 grams of carbohydrates a day forever. the problem with that was the goal I had in mind was so specific that when it didn't produce that goal, my motivation waned. Right. So I was like, I'll do this, but I better get to my ideal. Everything must hit my ideal because of this. And then it doesn't. And like, well, what's the motivation to keep doing that then? So I had to really change the way I thought about all of this stuff. And it was like, oh, I'm going to be either I go back to my baseline, which is overconsumption and apathy and lethargy and being sedentary, which is kind of my impulse, right? If left to my drives, my internal drivers, I'm going to watch TV and eat a very large amount of junk food, mm-hmm. pizza, fast food, stuff like that. And I'm going to kind of not feel great, right? All the time. I was more uncomfortable in my body, like physically. I was tired a lot of the time. I never felt rested. I never had energy. So there's that, and there's that version of life, which I experienced. I lived in that. And then there's like, what do I want out of life? Knowing that I'm going to have to create some kind of a structure that isn't dependent on the goal, right? Because the goal might not come. So like keto was only if I get to where I want to go. So where I want to go had to become more about the way I live. And I had to figure out stuff that wasn't just this manic, like I'm desperate for change. What crazy thing can I decide that I'll do forever? That is maybe not too realistic. It had to be taken from a somewhat more subdued place of being harsh with myself and very real. Like, what can I do every day forever? What aspects of my life am I willing to give up? Binge eating was the big one. Like, that is a real no-go for me. Mm-hmm. And even as I say that, there are instances where I'm unaware that I'm doing it. Like I'll go out to dinner with Brandy and go like, not that it's a cheat meal, but that like, oh, this is a restaurant I've heard about for years. I've never been here. I'm going to take some of the breaks off the way I eat. Like I'm going to have a bite of pasta. I'm going to try the appetizer. I'm not just going to do steamed fish and veggies, which is something I'll eat sometimes. Or like, I'm not just going to get a steak, a fatty steak like a ribeye and get veggies. I'm also going to try their potato side and eat a little bit of bread. And so some of the guardrails come off. And when some of the guardrails come off, I can find myself kind of in almost a blackout state, just eating. I'm no longer part of the conversation. I'm no longer really present. And in those instances, I've talked to Brandy about this. Like I've left a restaurant before going like, what happened? I don't feel well. I overate everything. I didn't want to. I wasn't thinking about anything. And she'll go like, yeah, you also stopped talking. Like I was sitting there having to make conversation with our friends. You were so focused on the food and you weren't even like focused on it in a way that's, like sharing it with us. Like, don't you think this is so good? What do you think they're making? You're just focused on eating. So that still happens. And like, it's very hard for me on my own to pull myself out of that. I just have to recognize that it happened and go like, okay, maybe I need more guardrails. The next time we go, I have to limit what I'm going to eat and be very specific beforehand. Like, so now I like look at menus diligently before I go to a restaurant and make decisions. What am I going to eat? Because if I go to a restaurant hungry, that's a new restaurant that is it all good and has tasty food and just go like, I want to try everything. Trying everything for me is very difficult to like have a single bite of all these things. And then, say I don't want the food to go and watch the waiter sadly to throw away a dish. I only had one bite. Like, that doesn't really work. There's many layers of guilt associated with stuff like that for me. And my compulsion to eat everything is very present. So I make decisions before I arrive at the moment of the actual decision, where I'm telling it to another person and know that plate of food is going to arrive to me. And, if it's like I just want to have one bite of something, I talk about that. Listen, I really just want to have one bite of this. Whoever I'm with, please take it away from me, or like, let's put it out of reach, so that after my bite, it's no longer sitting right under my nose, threatening me with another delicious bite. So that's binge eating. And then, my model for food is like, what is the structure that I'll be honestly happy with eating for the most part, for the rest of my life. And high protein, moderate fat and carbs, not with an extreme on either end, is really what I find myself most satisfied with. The food can taste good, but I also feel satisfied when I eat it. If it becomes too lopsided in one direction or the other, I find myself really craving those things. Like, if it's super low in carbs, I find myself craving carbs. If it's super low in fat, I find myself craving fat. I used to, when I was on cuts and trying to get as lean as possible, have dreams about ribeye steaks. Like, not quite wet dreams, but like a version of that where you just can't stop thinking about that stuff. And when I'm eating to maintain my weight and stuff is pretty balanced, I'm not thinking about one thing more than another. Now, like, I don't know that this is going to be everybody's experience. Maybe no matter what, you're always thinking about sugar. And for me, I also don't know what it is to feel full, really, right? I have this, like, I don't know if it's like an emotional or a mental void within me that I can fill with food to get some like ding moment of relief. And I don't think that has anything to do with how much energy my body needs, right? My body doesn't do a magical ding, you've had enough food. It's like this vortex of put more in, and we'll let you know when you feel kind of sick, that's when you're done, so I really have to think more about what portion of this is appropriate, and when I'm cooking for myself, I'm packaging things and measuring things a little bit more diligently. And like, that is the structure that has worked for me. So motivation is, I find when it's all a bit of a struggle with trying to lose weight. Trying to lose weight is a struggle. I think no matter what, it's always been a struggle. There is work and effort involved in it. Right now, I'm not trying to lose weight. I'm maintaining my weight. So there is no real struggle. The struggle is stay away from binge eating, stay away from the super delicious, calorically dense, tasty foods that are at restaurants and fast food places and gas stations and convenience stores. And even when you're checking out at a grocery store, they've got you're surrounded on all sides by aisles of treats that will get me in trouble. So that's kind of like, for the most part, off limits. And it's not such a struggle.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, because you, I mean, again, like, when you talk about this and this change of, behavior that has to really be, again, going back to the acute versus chronic, right? Like, this is a long-term, forever kind of a change that has to be made. Every time it's like, yep, it's such an incredible reminder. If you're talking about a person who, let's just say someone does have somewhat of a short-term or acute goal, right? Let's say somebody's like, okay, they're on a plan and they, they're having success with it, but that feeling where you're like bored with the food or the workout routine or the way you start getting into some kind of maybe that's part of why, I don't know, for me, like I guess I was just gonna say one can start getting into, aside from boredom, I just want to say like maybe it's a routine or it's a what is that? Hamster wheel. That's what I'm trying to say. Like you're in a hamster wheel with it, and maybe it's not, maybe you want to continue. You're not like trying to go off the rails and eat pizza at night, but you are just like, how do you find some type of motivation, right? When you're in that state, like what do you do when a person is in that place of like, oh my God, it's all the same. This is the same. Do you know what I mean?
I totally get what you're saying. But again, I gotta go back to the idea of short-term goals and long-term goals and setting up a structure for your life that's a forever structure, for me was so valuable, because then when dieting is just a slightly restrictive version of what I'm going to be doing forever. So that, I guess, if you're so hung up in the mundane day-to-day cycle of whatever you're going after in the short term, I would say shift everything to, then there's something wrong with your plan, right? Because it should just be a slightly more efforted version of what you're gonna do forever. I think we get lost so often in, I just need to lose this weight, so I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, that are not forever at all, that are only for this acute thing. And then it's like, yeah, well, that's going to suck because it doesn't look anything like what your life is going to look like. And then I think those rewards, those benefits, those goals are intangible or fleeting or ethereal, or they're like gossamer. They're there for a second, or are they really there? And then they're gone, because then you have to you go back to whatever long-term life is. And if it's so different, then it's impossible to maintain that stuff. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. If the structure is so hard and so mundane, then you need a different structure, or that would be my suggestion. And that's what I found to be true for me. When I was doing something that was like, this is not a way I can live my life. Yeah, I didn't live my life that way. And I always reverted and I always regained the weight. And so the whole ball of wax has to be viewed differently. And it's, what can I do for the rest of my life? What can I implement for the rest of my life? What guardrails can I put up that are going to be permanent to some degree? And there were mornings where I believed keto is it, or I can do, eat right for your blood type for life, and then none of those got me to where I wanted to be. So of course there was a level of lost motivation, because it's like, I've done this for 6 fucking months and I'm stalled, and I haven't made any progress in the last month, and I don't even like living this way, So I'm going to view the whole thing differently. What can I do for the rest of my life? What are things that I want to put in place for the rest of my life? Some exercise, but I'm not exercising for weight loss. Exercise is a completely different, I have utterly different goals with exercise. Exercise is to maintain muscle mass. So truly, that would even slow down possibly weight loss, because are we just losing weight or are we losing fat? I wanted to get really specific with what I wanted from restrictive diets where I'm in a caloric deficit. And I built a structure on my day where I was like bored, not manic, not desperate for change, that I went like, yes, this is a structure I can adhere to. This is a structure that aligns not just with my goals for my body, but also with me being a better dad, a better husband, a better employee, a better friend. And that I can do forever. And there are some concessions I will have to make with my base instincts. And then when I want to lose weight, it's just that, but a little bit restricted. So it's literally just the same plate of food, but I'm lopping off a quarter of it. And that I have to think about more, and that requires more effort. But then the mundanity, the mundane nature of dieting is gone because this is life, right? And that diet is short term because I'm not going to be restrictive forever. That is going to come to an end.
It's really interesting what you say, because I don't want to go making this all about me as I normally do, but no, I'm kidding. But it's like, I just experienced coming off of a losing phase assisted by Mounjaro. We've talked about this on the podcast and we don't have to go down this road, but I'm like officially about a month off, right, for my last shot. It's no longer in my body. I can totally tell because I'm hungrier. And it's really interesting, but I've been it's like I talk to myself all the time. Like, well, just because you're hungrier, you were doing fine on X amount of food before, but I did get a little like loosey-goosey about stuff and real cocky in my 50-pound weight loss and all this, right? But I have a number on the scale that I'm not going to go over no matter what. And so recently I got to that number and I was like, okay, I'm at that place. And then was 2 pounds above. And I was like, uh-oh, And so just speaking to like those guardrails and the things that you have to put up for yourself for that consistency and future and chronicness, right? I was like, okay, let me go back to what was I doing before this little like less aware phase that I've been in for the last 6 days or whatever, because it really was like a week. And sure, maybe that's not actual pounds, maybe that's water, who knows, but I have to be, my husband was saying, well, don't beat yourself up about 2 pounds. I was like, no, you don't understand. For me, if I don't, even if this is just water or it's that time of the month or whatever, if I don't rein it in right now, this will be 20 in about, another 5 minutes. Like, I was like, I have to pay attention. So I was like, okay, yeah, what was I doing while I was just eating 3 meals a day. It's literally all I was doing. And they were balanced meals and I wasn't getting super, I wasn't eating dairy and whatever, just cause like try not to eat super high fat when you're on that medicine. But I was like, I gotta just go back to that like the consistency and very specifically, what was I doing these last 10 months,
Yeah.
So I'm doing that now. And it's like, okay, cool. 0.5 pound came off, blah, blah. So it's the guardrails and all these things. Anyway, I just get what you're saying so much on such a practical, personal level. Cause I'm like, okay, it just has to be a maintainable, lifelong thing. And
well,
so,
yeah, if it's not, I mean, and this is the fear a little bit with those medicines, which I'm a fan of, but is like somebody comes off them and then you get into even a cycle of I'm 2 pounds up. Now I'm going to do something extreme
right,
to get those 2 pounds off.
right.
And then once those 2 pounds or whatever, or, you go like, well, the 2 pounds came off real easy. I'm going to go for 7. Right.
Uh-huh.
And so the extreme thing, and then you're like, okay, I got those 7 down. Now I'm going to go back to whatever the fuck I was doing that produced those 7 pounds.
Uh-huh.
And then you're just back in the yo-yo cycle of like
in the cycle. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think taking these medications is a chance to put some restraints and guardrails in place that might be more easily adhered to. Like you can figure it out. Do I like eating tuna fish? Do I like eating chicken breasts? No, I don't like eating that. Okay. What about salmon? What about ground turkey? What are the options out there for me? What about tofu? You can explore, and all the food noise and the hunger and all that stuff is maybe not present,
Mm-hmm.
and you can create a structure that you're like, yes, I like this for the most part. I do imagine the hunger increases when you come back, and then you're eating more calories overall, but you're not dieting anymore. So that structure can be played with a little bit more easily.
Yeah. It's really interesting, actually. It's like, because the hunger did increase, and not right away. It really was like, okay, I've been off this a week. I've been off this 2 weeks. I'm good, And my stomach was smaller because I've been eating less for 10 months. And so there was that moment where it was like, even if you feel hungrier, you really would have to push yourself past the full point to, like if you just, I just was like, listen to my body. Like, I'm full. I am full. I don't need any more food. So it's just a lot of awareness and like practice of just, but yeah, oh my God, what you just said about like those 2 pounds come back and you think, well, what can I do that's extreme to get those 2 pounds off? I had a thought like that. And
Yeah.
I went,
I mean, I think listen, I have those thoughts all the time, and I have to talk myself through them. Like, I'll see the scale go up and I'll be like, no carbs today. I know it'll come off if I eat no carbs. And it's like, is that 2 pounds fat? Is that 2 pounds water? Who fucking knows? But even
Yeah.
if I have to be more restrictive, going no carb for me is a stupid thing to do, because then
Yeah.
I never know. Had I gained fat? Had I lost water? What is it? If I quit carbs, I know for sure I'm just going to be purging my system of water, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's what I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to see. And so then I'm going to enter this up and down fluctuation where, like Clementine, my daughter with type 1 diabetes, when she was struggling with diabetes and blood sugar and stuff, you would see these crazy swings of like, she didn't give herself the proper bolus of insulin, so her blood sugar spikes. Then she takes too much insulin, then her blood sugar crashes. Then she's trying to fix that with sugar, then it spikes again. Then and it's just this crazy swing, and you don't ever want that. Steady kind of rise and fall in a graph, if you were to chart this thing, for me is just a way better way to live, where I'm never going one extreme or another. I'm never going over the holidays anymore and putting on 10 or 15 pounds that I then want to cram myself into losing over a week, and then it comes right back, and then you're just in this kind of manic swing of highs and lows. And it's hard to escape that. And that's what dieting was for me for so long. And I don't want to live like that. I want to live a more moderate lifestyle where, okay, I was traveling for 10 days, and I understand the scale is up, and what do? Okay. I stiffen, I put in some, I get a little bit more strict, right? I start to measure my food this week. That's it. That's all I'm going to do. I'm not going to eat something completely different and shock my system.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think it starts with finding out honestly what you can. If you're not motivated with what you're doing, why would you be motivated with what you're doing 3 years from now?
Yeah. Yeah. So then, for someone who's asking, okay, I'm bored, or how do I, what's my motivation or whatever? Are you saying what I've heard you say before, which I love so much? Like, the motivation is that long-term, how do I want to live, and how do I want to, right? Like, just looking at it for the long term, and not, it's like, I hear this, it's the short term that messes us up. Am I right?
Yeah, I think motivation is downstream from discipline, number one. So discipline is real important. And I want to say, as a person who's sober and maintained a massive amount of weight loss for years now, I mean, 6 years now, I've maintained this weight loss. That's a long, long time. There are so many days that I'm not motivated, but I have discipline in what I'm doing. And I get through the moment of the voice in my head saying, take a day off, order Domino's, lay in bed, you know, get a big gulp of cherry Coke at 7-Eleven, you know, and a few of their hot dogs, which their hot dogs are delicious, even though, you know, they've been like rolling on that machine for 6 hours. Something about that is even appealing. They create this leathery outer texture. We don't have New York hot dogs where I live, so it almost is as close as you can get to like a dirty water hot dog that has the snap, you know, that snap when you bite into the real animal casing, which is like some poor thing's lower intestine. And you put jalapenos on it. And in California, we learned very young that mayonnaise on a hot dog is a good idea.
Nope.
Those goddamn Echo Park, they cook them on the side of like a stolen shopping cart somehow, and they're magical, with big grilled jalapenos and stuff. And you can recreate that at a 7-Eleven. Any 7-Eleven in the country, you can recreate that delicious hot dog. And you're pushing down and getting the little turd swirls of mayonnaise on there. I want to eat those.
New title for the episode is
Turd swirls of mayonnaise.
Turd swirls and mayonnaise. Yeah. Well, it's. I want you to know, first of all, anytime I eat a hot dog, I think of you because I know that's your thing.
I fucking love hot dogs, man.
Yeah. So I recently bought some natural something Whole Foods brand hot dogs, and I was like, and I ate them like maybe two times in a week. Just no bun, no nothing, just literally like, I need to eat something, and made them real quick. And then when I was sort of tightening up after these 2 pounds and this and that, and looking at what I've been doing, I was like, well, funny enough, I mean, this is not probably so bad. It's just some protein, but I was like, no, it's just not a balanced meal. It's not a food I was eating the last 10 months. And I was like, forget it. I don't care how natural it is or this or that. I'm not buying that again. You know,
Yeah,
just
dude.
like these little tiny things of like, that's a new unproven thing I added in. Like, why do I need to eat that? You know?
Listen, I love hot dogs, and the only meat in tube form, that's how Anthony Bourdain called all this stuff, sausages and hot dogs and stuff. I didn't invent that, sadly.
Okay.
Are Belinsky's, and you can get them at Whole Foods. Belinsky's sausages. I don't know why, and they're not even marketed as diet food, but they should be, because sausage has 80 calories, which is much less than like a flimsy little Nathan's or Oscar Mayer hot dog, which has like 100 plus and is smaller, and 12 to 14 grams of protein. Those macros are incredible. They're super low in fat, but they're not, it doesn't say on it like low fat, high protein sausage, but you compare that to any other sausage, you can see sausages in there like a hot link is like, could be 200 calories and like just so much fat and less protein. That Belinsky's are fucking magical for anybody who likes meat in tube form. And you know, you can taste, it's not an Oscar Mayer hot link. It's not kielbasa. It's not, one of these hot or sweet, unbelievable pork Italian sausages that are just kind of generic at the supermarket that I love so dearly. But it fills a void of like, I need a little meat in tube form, you know, and they've got lots of flavors. So that's my hack. I'm not sponsored by them. I wish I was, because they're fucking awesome. I love them so much.
If anyone is listening, get this podcast to them. Yeah. No, I think I know it's something. Well, I appreciate everything that you said. You know, as I always say, I'm just lucky I get to have these therapeutic, fly on the wall. We're talking to a lot of people here, but it's all for me. But no, it is so, I just appreciate everything you said. And just the concept of staying motivated, right? Staying motivated. Like,
well, yeah, I mean, it's like anything. Are you motivated every single day to go to work? Is every single day of work some magical day that your eyes pop open and you're like, can't wait to do this? I'm not. There are days that are just like, fuck, gotta do this again. And then there are other days where it's like, that day was awesome. I loved what I did. I felt great about it. So like, I don't think we should have to feel motivation at all times in our life. I don't. Discipline is another story. And if you create some structure that is going to be so hard or so mundane that you're going to want to pull your hair out at some point, then I say that's not the right structure. If every single day going to work, you lose a little bit of your soul, find a different job, go do something else. Look, I would say pursue something else. Similarly, if every single day the structure you've created is so tedious, then I would say change it, and I would beware of, I can do this for 3 months. I can do this for 6 months, and then it's over. And then I get to go back to all the shit that produced the situation that I'm trying to escape from. That's the problem.
Yeah. And it's a reminder. I'm just, again, from my own recent experience, like I am always reminding myself how did I feel, like that awful feeling of just like, I want to look different. I want to feel different. I want to have more energy. I want to not be the person in the room who feels the biggest or is the most introverted or the most like self-absorbed. You know what I mean? Like it's very introverting and like feeling so much of your own, like just constantly looking at yourself.
It's like harmful narcissism.
Yes.
Yeah, it really is. No, I feel the same way. Like the amount of attention I had on myself at all times was nauseating, Like, and then I'm looking at other people and I'm interested in them and admiring them. But so much of my thought and time was spent thinking inwardly in a negative way about myself. I'm with you. That shit, though, I think we got to work on almost separately,
Yeah. Yeah. And every day, it's every day. It's like, it's really, it's so much better to feel, I don't know, just to, be interested in things outside of yourself. If you can get that under control, that like constant self-talk and I mean, we've talked about it a lot. It's like being negative to yourself or, and I can find a way to be negative to myself on anything. I can literally find a way to chastise myself for anything. And so when, it's daily, it's practice. It's working on yourself all the time. Can I tell you a really speaking of narcissism, I can't even believe I'm going to say this, but I'm going to say it. So, I lost 50 pounds. Cool. Everyone that I see who I haven't seen in a long time goes, wow, you look great. And I'm like, thanks, and I've gotten used to that in the last month or two, seeing someone that I haven't seen in a long time, noticing the weight loss. Okay. So last weekend I went to a kid's birthday party, one of my husband's dear friends, that we haven't seen in about a year. And I said hi to these people and no one said anything about my weight loss. And I clocked it. I was like, interesting. Cool. Not thinking to myself, they're very busy with putting on their 4-year-old's birthday party. There's 50 people here, whatever, just in thinking about myself. Right. And it kind of I thought about it a couple times during that hour and a half that I was there. I was like, well, okay, okay, Paige. And as I left, the dad, the guy, the parent of the kid said, by the way, you look amazing. And I said, oh, thanks. That's so sweet. And I left cool, and then I was driving home thinking, wow, you idiot. How self-absorbed can you be? And gotta get, again, that's a short-sighted, short-term, it's just no, if this is me, then I just need to be okay with me. I need to not be thinking about myself all the time. And it's just another version of those attention, those thoughts, just on yourself. And I was like, yeah, I cannot, that's another thing to work on, right? Just totally. don't be looking for someone to compliment you. This has to, you know what I'm saying? Anyway, can't believe I'm admitting that, but I've admitted so many things on this podcast. I thank God that I don't know anyone who actually I don't think I know anyone
I don't think that's true, number one. But number two, no, but it's a great point, and I think a lot of people will be able to relate to that.
Yeah.
Because I think even, I get into like expecting that acknowledgement and then sad when it doesn't come, or with my attention on it when it doesn't come. And then when it does come, I'm uncomfortable with it.
Right.
And like, it doesn't matter. That's all within me. Like, that's my own bullshit. And I really am trying every day to think about things other than myself. Like, I've spent so much of my life just thinking about myself, whether negatively or positively. And it's like so boring and nauseating. And like, I want to be interested in other things and other people and, other stuff that has nothing to do with my body, my dumb body that just takes up so much fucking free rent in my head. And and there's effort in that too.
Oh, no, you're so right. Because if someone does compliment me, what do? I explain it away. I never just go,
nothing.
Thanks.
It was,
Oh, I took this stuff, another, like a way to say, like, I didn't do it on my own. I had this. It's just like, oh my God. So you're totally right. My dumb body that takes up so much space in my head, like
crazy,
exhausting. Yeah.
Yeah. No, but by the way, I wouldn't even do that. If you, look, I don't know, but like, I mean, I guess it's the same. Like, you could say, like, if you had done, what's some fatty diet, the ideal protein diet. Somebody could go like, you look great. And you go, well, I just did the ideal protein diet. And then it's like, oh yeah, so the weight's coming back. So we know this is temporary. You know what I mean? Like, what is the point in even saying that? Thank you.
Nothing. That's right.
I worked hard. I'm working hard to maintain it. Like, I don't know, but I agree. The compliments are tricky because if they don't come, it sucks. When they do come, we try to belittle them. And it's like, no, yes, thank you. Let's talk about anything but me.
Exactly. No, it is the daily practice. It's the daily, it's just it's a practice. It's all a practice. And I always just think about you saying it's this long-term thing, I loved that episode so much. If anyone hasn't heard it, just find it. It's recent. But where you talked about that acute versus chronic. So again, it's all of these things, all these behaviors, all these thoughts, all these activities. And it's just, it's long-term and not just about
and again, I would say this doesn't have, I don't think any of this stuff is universal or absolute or applies to every single person. I really think a lot of the problems that I had with dieting was, for the longest time, I was searching for somebody else's truth to make my truth. And I'm reading a book. This will be my truth. I'm just going to live as though this is my truth, right? The zone diet is going to be my truth. Or the grain brain is my truth. Or, lectins poisoning across the board is my truth. Or, keto is my truth. And none of it was really my truth. I had to find what was true for me. And what was true for me is I wasn't thinking about my condition as though it was a long-term lifetime condition that was going to still be with me whether I lost weight or not. So I kept going through it, going like, I have a new truth. So now I'm going to live this way and it's going to solve everything. And then when it didn't solve everything, I'd go like, well, I fucked it up. I wasn't doing that truth hard enough. I need to like really do that truth harder. And that just wasn't working. So I had to like really figure out what can I do? What is going to work for me? And how do I think about myself and my situation in a way that's going to prove useful to me, next year and the year after. And so far we're 6 years in and it's like, this is a truth I enjoy.
Yeah. That's awesome. Thank you so much for that. Thank you for answering this question for all of us out here. Yeah, appreciate it.
Paige.
Heck yeah. Okay, cool.